Why are you still breathing when others your age have already gone home? Why are you still fighting when your body should have surrendered years ago? Why? Why are you still here when heaven could have called you home a dozen times over? Listen to me carefully, precious soul. You didn't accidentally click on this message. Your finger didn't slip. This isn't the algorithm. This is divine intervention. Heaven has been orchestrating this moment, waiting for you to hear these words. Right now. Maybe you're sitting in your worn leather chair, the one that's held your prayers and your tears. Maybe you've buried more friends than dreams. Maybe your children think you're done, that your best days are behind you. Maybe you've whispered to God in the dark, "Why am I still here when everyone I love is gone?" But let me speak truth over your weary soul. You are not done. Heaven isn't finished with you yet. Something sacred is stirring right now. You feel it, don't you? That familiar tug in your chest, that divine restlessness. That's not loneliness, beloved. That's your spirit recognizing its calling. Angels have been circling your life for decades, protecting you, preparing you for this exact moment. You've survived the depression. You've buried spouses, children, dreams. You've watched the world change into something you barely recognize. But you're still here, still standing, still believing. Why? Because heaven has been saving you for something final, something glorious, something that only someone with your scars, your wisdom, your fire-tested faith could accomplish. If something stirs in your chest already, if your spirit is trembling with recognition, comment, "I'm still standing." Let heaven see you. Let hell know you're not quitting. Let every demon that tried to bury you know they failed. And before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about growing older. The angels haven't forgotten your name, and your final instructions, they're about to be released. Stay with me. Don't you dare leave now. Heaven has waited too long for this moment. Why do you think your mother carried you longer than expected? Why did you take your first breath when doctors said you wouldn't survive? Why have you outlived predictions, outlasted diagnoses, and outrun death itself more times than you can count? Listen closely, precious soul. The answer isn't luck. It isn't good genes. It isn't even modern medicine. The answer is written in the ancient pages of eternity, long before your grandmother's grandmother ever drew breath. You see, there's something most people will never understand about your life. Something that explains why you've always felt different. Why you've never quite fit into the boxes this world tried to stuff you into. Why even now, in your golden years, there's still fire burning in your bones when everyone expects you to fade away. You were marked before time began, before your parents ever met, before your family tree ever took root in American soil, before the foundations of this great nation were ever laid. Heaven held a meeting about you, not a casual conversation, not a passing thought. A divine council where your name was spoken with reverence, your purpose declared with authority, your destiny sealed with the very breath of God. Jeremiah 1-5 declares this truth with stunning clarity. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. That word "knew" in Hebrew means intimately acquainted with, chosen with affection, selected with purpose. God didn't just know about you. He knew you. Your laugh, your tears, your stubborn streak that drove your parents crazy, your tender heart that breaks for others. He knew it all, and he said, "That one. Yes, that one. Mark them. They're mine." But here's where it gets deeper. Ephesians 1-4 reveals the timeline. He chose us in him before the creation of the world. Not after you proved yourself, not after you cleaned up your act, not after you earned it through decades of Sunday morning church attendance. Before the world existed, you were already chosen. Do you understand what this means? When the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy at creation, your name was already on the guest list. When God separated light from darkness, He had already separated you from the ordinary. When He breathed life into Adam's nostrils, He had already breathed purpose into your destiny. There's a blueprint hidden in your bones, dear one, a scroll written into your very DNA. You didn't come here just to collect Social Security and watch the evening news. You didn't survive the Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam, 9/11s, and countless personal battles just to take up space in a rocking chair. You came here to release something. Think about it. Why have you lived through things that broke other people? Why did you survive that car accident on Route 95 when the doctors said it was impossible? Why did you walk away from that cancer diagnosis when the statistics said you wouldn't? Why are you still here when everyone said you'd be gone years ago? Because there's something inside you that this world desperately needs, something that can only be released by someone who's been through what you've been through, someone who's seen what you've seen, someone who's survived what you've survived. But here's the tragedy that keeps me awake at night. Here's what breaks heaven's heart and gives hell its greatest victory. What happens when the marked forget they've been chosen? I've watched it happen thousands of times. I've seen men and women who were marked before time began, chosen before creation, selected for greatness, slowly convince themselves they're ordinary. They retire their dreams along with their careers. They silence their voices just when the world needs to hear them most. They assume their best days are behind them when heaven is screaming that their greatest days are just ahead. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness, that sense that there's more, that knowing deep in your spirit that you're not done yet. That's not midlife crisis or old age confusion. That's your marking calling you back to remembrance. Your children may think you should slow down. Your doctors may say, take it easy. Society may whisper that your time has passed. But I'm here to tell you that heaven is saying something completely different. Heaven is saying, now, right now, this is your time. The enemy has been working overtime to make you forget who you are. He's used disappointment, loss, physical limitations, and the voice of a youth-obsessed culture to convince you that your value has diminished. But the enemy is a liar, and his time is running out. If you've always felt like you never quite fit in, if you've spent your whole life feeling like there was something different about you, something that others couldn't quite understand, type marked in the comments right now, because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break through. You were meant to shatter the stereotypes about aging. You were meant to prove that God doesn't have expiration dates on His calling. You were meant to show this generation that the best wine comes last, that the most beautiful sunsets happen at the end of the day, and that heaven saves its most powerful weapons for the final hour. But what I'm about to tell you next will shake you to your core. Because if you're marked, if you're chosen, if you're still here breathing and believing, then you need to understand this crucial truth about why the attacks have been so intense, why the enemy has fought you so hard, and why everything is about to change. You know what nobody talks about when you get to be your age? The weight. Not the weight on your body, the weight on your soul. The crushing reality that you've outlived most of your dreams and buried half the people you loved. Let me speak to the pain you've been carrying in silence. You've lost people, outlived promises, survived more funerals than holidays. You've sat in hospital waiting rooms at 3 a.m., holding the hand of someone who wouldn't make it to sunrise. You've cleaned out closets full of clothes that will never be worn again, found love letters from someone who's been gone for 20 years. The rejection, the silence, the betrayal, the waiting. Your own children don't call like they used to. They're too busy with their lives to understand that you're drowning in memories. Your body betrayed you, knees that won't climb stairs, eyes that can't read like they used to, a heart that skips beats and reminds you daily that time is running out. You've questioned God more times than you've praised Him. In the dark hours when sleep won't come and the pain won't leave, you've whispered, "Why me? Why this? Why now?" Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every single blow was strategic. Every loss, every heartbreak, every midnight in the emergency room, it was all calculated warfare against your destiny. Because hell knew something about you that you're just now discovering. You weren't randomly chosen for suffering. You were specifically targeted because of what you carry. Think about Job. The Bible says he was blameless and upright, yet God allowed Satan to strip away everything, his children, his wealth, his health. Job 1-8 records God saying, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him." Why would God highlight Job to Satan? Because when you're marked for greatness, you become a target for destruction. Your pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every tear you've cried in that empty house, every night you've wondered if anyone would miss you if you were gone, every moment you've felt invisible and forgotten angels were taking notes. Heaven was watching, and what looked like burial was actually planting. You thought you were buried, but you were planted. And planted things rise. Listen to me carefully, precious soul. You didn't survive that heart attack by accident. You didn't walk away from that car crash on pure luck. You didn't beat that diagnosis through medical science alone. Angels were standing watch. Divine intervention kept writing your story when everything else was trying to end it. Psalm 91-11 declares, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." Those weren't just pretty words. That was your protection plan. Every breath you're taking right now is proof that God still has plans for you. Every sunrise you've witnessed that others missed is evidence that your assignment isn't complete. The depression that tried to swallow you whole, it couldn't, because light lives in you. The loneliness that whispered you were forgotten. Lies, because your name is engraved on the palms of his hands. The financial struggles that made you feel worthless, temporary, because your value was never tied to your bank account. But here's where it gets deeper. The reason your trials were so intense, so relentless, so specific to your breaking point, you were being forged. Malachi 3:3 says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." The fire wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to reveal the gold that was always there. Every person who walked away from you when you needed them most, they weren't qualified to walk with you where you're going. Every door that slammed shut in your face, protection from a path that would have destroyed your destiny, every prayer that seemed to bounce off the ceiling, it was being stored in golden bowls before the throne, waiting for the appointed time. You've been refined by rejection, purified by pain, strengthened by silence. And now no heaven is ready to reveal why you had to endure what others couldn't survive. The enemy overplayed his hand. He hit you so hard, so often, that he accidentally activated something in your spirit. A warrior was born in that hospital bed. A prophet was forged in that financial crisis. An intercessor was shaped in that season of loss. You're not the same person who entered that valley of suffering. You came out carrying authority that can only be earned through fire. You pray differently now. You worship differently. You see through different eyes because you've walked where others fear to tread. Isaiah 61:3 promises beauty for ashes, oil of joy for mourning, garments of praise for the spirit of heaviness. But notice you had to have ashes before you could receive beauty. You had to experience mourning before joy could be poured out. The heaviness had to come before the praise could be meaningful. If you've been through pain that made you question everything, that broke you down to your foundation and rebuilt you from the ground up, write "still chosen" in the comments right now. Because God didn't change his mind when you were suffering. He was shaping his masterpiece. The scars you carry aren't marks of defeat, they're badges of divine endurance. The story written in your wrinkles isn't one of failure, it's a testimony of faithfulness that demons tremble at and angels applaud. But now I need you to understand something that will change everything about how you see what's coming next. You know what happened the moment you drew your first breath 70, 80, maybe 90 years ago? Heaven paused. Angels stopped their worship. The throne room of God went silent for just a moment as your name was whispered among the wings of seraphim. Not because you were born perfect, not because you would never stumble, but because even then, before you could speak, before you could walk, before you could even understand what faith meant, you were already marked. Listen to me, dear one. This isn't Sunday school poetry. This is prophetic reality. Psalm 91:11 declares with crystal clarity, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." Not some of your ways, not just the good days, all your ways. Those angels, they've been with you for 8 decades. When you fell off your bike at 7 years old, an angel steadied you. When that car missed you by inches on Highway 95 back in 1967, an angel moved the wheel. When the doctor said cancer, and you walked out 3 years later clean, that wasn't just medicine, beloved. That was angelic intervention. You think you're just grandma in Kansas, sitting in your recliner, watching the world go crazy on the evening news. But in the spirit realm, you're a general. You're a warrior who's been through more battles than any young soldier could imagine. And heaven has been keeping record. Revelation 5-8 tells us something that will shake you to your core. The prayers of the saints are kept in golden bowls before the throne. Every midnight prayer you whispered when your husband was dying, collected, every tearful plea when your son was overseas, stored, every desperate cry when the bills couldn't be paid, treasured in heaven's archives. You didn't know it then, but every prayer was a signal flare to heaven. Every tear was noticed. Every sleepless night of intercession was building something in the spirit realm that you're only now beginning to understand. The enemy has tried to convince you that your best days are behind you. He's whispered lies that you're irrelevant, forgotten, past your prime. But he's terrified because he knows something you're just remembering. Marked vessels don't expire. They don't retire. They don't fade into the background. Isaiah 49:16 records God's own words. "I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." Not written in pencil, not typed on a computer. Engraved. Carved deep, permanent. Your name is literally scarred into the hands of Almighty God. That's why you survived the heart attack when the doctors said you wouldn't. That's why you made it through the depression when others didn't. That's why you're still here when half your high school class is buried in Oakwood Cemetery. Because your name is engraved in heaven's palm, and what God has marked, hell cannot erase. But here's what's happening right now that most people your age will never understand. The marking isn't just about protection anymore, it's about activation. Heaven has been waiting for this generation of seniors to wake up to who they really are. Not has-beens, not forgotten relics, but divine disruptors. You see, while the young people are busy with their phones and their careers and their endless distractions, God is turning to the ones who've been refined by fire, the ones who know what real hardship looks like, the ones who understand that life is fragile and eternity is real. You are a divine disruption in a world that worships youth. Your wrinkled hands have more power in them than any 20-something smooth fingers. Your weathered voice carries more authority than any influencer's perfect speech, because you've been marked not just by time, but by trials, not just by age, but by angels. The young people think they're changing the world with their protests and their politics. But God is about to use a generation that prayed through World War II, survived the Cold War, and raised families when America still believed in something bigger than itself. This isn't retirement, precious soul. This is recruitment. Heaven has been grooming you for 7, 8, 9 decades for what's about to unfold. The angels didn't protect you just so you could watch reruns and complain about your arthritis. They marked you because the final chapter of your story is about to be the most glorious one yet. Type 999 if you know this isn't just another video. It's your spiritual activation. 9 means completion in biblical numerology. Heaven is saying the preparation is complete. Now it begins. And what begins now is unlike anything you've experienced in all your years on this earth. Because the angels who marked you, they're about to start giving you your final instructions. Not your last will and testament. Your final assignment. The question that will determine everything about what happens next is this. Will you answer the call, or will you let fear convince you that you're too old to be used by God one more time? Beloved, we've reached the moment heaven has been preparing you for your entire life. Everything up until now has been training. Every heartbreak, every loss, every sleepless night, wondering if God had forgotten you. It was all preparation for what I'm about to reveal. There's one more thing God needs from you. I know what you're thinking. I'm too old. I'm too tired. I've already given everything. But listen carefully. Your age is not a curse. Your age is proof that you outlived hell's plans. The enemy threw everything at you: cancer, divorce, the death of your children, financial ruin, depression so deep you couldn't see daylight. Yet here you are, still breathing, still believing. There's one more thing God needs from you. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 80 years old, stuttering, afraid, making excuses. But God said in Exodus 7:7, Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Your wisdom is your weapon. Your scars are your credentials. Every year you've lived, every battle you've survived, every tear you've cried, heaven has been taking notes. Caleb was 85 when he said in Joshua 14:12, Give me this mountain. 85 years old, demanding the hardest territory to conquer. The giants didn't scare him. The fortified cities didn't intimidate him. He said, I am still as strong today as I was in the day Moses sent me. That's you, chosen one. You're not fading. You're peaking. There's one more thing God needs from you. But let me hit you with something that's going to shake your foundation. You didn't just survive cancer. You survived demonic intelligence. You didn't just survive divorce. You survived spiritual warfare designed to destroy your bloodline. You didn't just survive depression. You survived hell's strategic plan to silence your voice before you could speak your final words. The enemy knew who you'd become. He saw your destiny scroll before time began. He watched heaven mark you for greatness. So he deployed every weapon in his arsenal while you were young, hoping to kill you before you could reach this moment. The car accident that should have taken you out at 25. The heart attack at 55 that the doctors said was impossible to survive. The diagnosis they said was terminal. But you're still here. Hell threw its best shot. And you're still here. There's one more thing God needs from you. Here's what the devil didn't understand. The longer you live, the more dangerous you become. Every year of your life has been accumulating spiritual authority. Every prayer you've prayed has been building momentum in the heavenly realm. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, love over hate, faith over fear, you were stockpiling ammunition for this final assignment. Your grandchildren don't know it, but they're counting on you. Your great-grandchildren who aren't even born yet, their destinies hang in the balance of your obedience in this hour. The enemy tried to cut your bloodline short because he knew that if you lived long enough, if you stayed faithful long enough, you'd become unstoppable. There's one more thing God needs from you. Right now, in nursing homes across America, in assisted living facilities, in houses where the furniture is covered in plastic and the walls are lined with medications, heaven is activating its most experienced warriors. Seniors who've been dismissed by society as over the hill are being commissioned for the most critical mission of their lives. You think retirement means God is done with you. You think because your body is failing, your spirit is finished. Listen to what Joel 2:28 promises. I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your old men will dream dreams. Not just young men, old women. The aged will dream dreams that shake nations. There's one more thing God needs from you. Your final instructions aren't about comfort, they're about conquest. Not conquering lands, but conquering the powers of darkness that have held your family captive for generations. The addiction that runs in your bloodline stops with your prayers. The poverty that's plagued your family for decades breaks under your declarations. The mental illness, the divorce, the rebellion, it all crumbles when you step into your final anointing. You've been thinking this was your sunset, but heaven calls it your sunrise. Every morning you wake up wondering why God keeps you here is a morning heaven celebrates, because you're not just surviving, you're accumulating authority, wisdom, spiritual weapons that only come through decades of faithfulness. There's one more thing God needs from you. The instruction coming to you won't be comfortable. It might require you to have conversations your family won't understand. It might mean praying prayers that sound crazy to the nursing staff. It might mean declaring promises over bloodlines that have forgotten how to hope. But understand this, when an 80-year-old saint opens their mouth to speak, demons flee faster than when a young evangelist preaches, because your words carry the weight of decades. Your prayers pierce realms that casual faith can't reach. So I'm going to ask you to do something powerful right now. Don't just think it. Don't just nod along. Say it out loud. I don't care if you're in a hospital room, a senior center, or sitting in your favorite chair. Open your mouth and proclaim, Lord, I will obey. I'm ready for the final instruction. Don't whisper it. Proclaim it. Let every angel assigned to your life hear your surrender. Let every demon that tried to bury you know they failed. Say it now. Lord, I will obey. I'm ready for the final instruction. Because what happens next will determine not just how your story ends, but how your family's story begins. Listen to me, chosen one. What you're about to understand will shake you to your core. You think this calling, this stirring in your spirit, this fire that won't die you think it's just about you. You think God kept you alive this long just so you could coast into heaven on easy street. No, beloved. What you're carrying isn't just for your comfort. It's for your bloodline's freedom. It's for chains that have strangled your family for generations. It's for prayers your great-grandmother whispered in the dark that she never saw answered. You are the key others have been praying for. Someone else's breakthrough is locked behind your yes. Think about Harriet Tubman, this woman who couldn't read or write, who worked the fields until her hands bled, who had visions so powerful they guided her through slave territories in the dead of night. She could have stayed safe. She could have enjoyed her own freedom. But heaven wouldn't let her rest. She said, I was the conductor of the Underground Railroad for 8 years, and I can say what most conductors can't say. I never ran my train off the track and I never lost a passenger. 300 souls, 300 human beings walked from slavery to freedom because one woman said yes to visions that made no earthly sense. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what should shake you awake right now. Harriet wasn't young when she started. She wasn't educated. She wasn't qualified by any human standard. She was damaged goods, scarred by slavery, marked by trauma. But God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. You sitting there, thinking you're too old, thinking you're too broken, thinking your best days are behind you, you sound just like the enemy wants you to sound. Because if he can convince you that your age disqualifies you, then he can keep 300 souls in bondage who are waiting for your obedience. Who's waiting on you right now? That grandson who's addicted to fentanyl, that daughter who's lost her faith, that neighbor who hasn't smiled in 2 years since her husband died. You weren't called to be comfortable. You were called to be catalytic. I know a Vietnam veteran named Charlie. Came home from the jungle with PTSD so bad he couldn't sleep in his own house for 20 years. Lived on the streets, drank himself nearly to death, watched his marriage crumble, his kids stop calling. At 73 years old, broken and bitter, he wandered into a church basement AA meeting. That night, God whispered to his wounded spirit, I saved you in Vietnam for this moment. Today, Charlie walks into maximum security prisons where hardened killers and gang leaders drop to their knees when he prays. Why? Because his scars speak louder than seminary degrees. His pain carries authority that comfort never could. Last month, A lifer named Marcus, 30 years behind bars for murder, called Charlie Chaplin, and wept like a baby as Charlie led him to Christ. Marcus had been planning to hang himself in his cell. Charlie's obedience saved a man who will now reach others Charlie could never touch. 3 generations of impact from one broken veteran who said yes at 73. The enemy doesn't fight your comfort. He fights your calling. That's why your health is under attack. That's why your peace is constantly disrupted. That's why you feel this burning urgency that you can't explain. Because hell knows what heaven is about to release through your surrender. But you keep asking the wrong question. You keep asking, why me? When you should be asking, who's waiting for me to stop making excuses? Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." Set apart. Not set aside. Set apart. You've been wondering why your life felt different, why you never fit in, why you survived what killed others. It's because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break out. Break chains, break cycles, break generational curses that have held your family hostage for decades. Right now there's a prayer meeting happening in heaven. Angels are interceding for the souls connected to your obedience. Your deceased spouse is cheering you on from glory. Your mother's prayers from 40 years ago are about to be answered through your movement. But you have to move. That restlessness you feel isn't arthritis, it's anointing. That burden that won't leave your chest isn't heartburn. It's heaven pressing you toward your assignment. Stop looking at your age and start looking at your anointing. Stop counting your years and start counting your tears, because every one of them was an investment in someone else's freedom. Isaiah 61-3 promises you will bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. But notice the word bestow. That means give, transfer, release to others. Your ashes become someone else's beauty. Your mourning becomes someone else's joy. Your despair becomes someone else's praise song. Who's waiting on your obedience? Grandkids who need to see faith in action. Nieces and nephews who've never seen anyone pray with power. Neighbors who watch you through their windows, wondering if God is real. They're watching, they're waiting, they're praying for someone authentic, someone who's been through hell and still believes heaven is real. That's you. That's your calling. That's why you're still here when others your age are gone. Type, "They're worth it," if you're ready to carry this. Type it if you're done living for yourself and ready to live for the generations that need your yes more than you need your comfort. Because when you step into what heaven is releasing, you won't just be walking into your destiny, you'll be walking into theirs. And that, beloved, is why the angels marked you from the beginning. Beloved, I need to speak some hard truth into your spirit right now. Some of you have been spiritually procrastinating for decades. You've been playing small when God called you to stand tall. You've been whispering when heaven gave you a voice that could shake mountains. Delay is just disobedience wearing makeup. Let me ask you something that's going to sting. How many years have you wasted waiting for permission to be who God already said you are? How many decades have you spent apologizing for the fire He placed inside you? How long have you been shrinking to make other people comfortable while your own soul suffocates? You've been tiptoeing through a life that was meant to be lived boldly. You've been dimming your light because someone told you that older folks should just sit quietly and wait for heaven. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell, and it's time you recognized it for what it is. Listen to me carefully. Moses was 80 years old when God told him to confront Pharaoh. 80. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to Isaac. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus in the temple. These weren't young people in their prime. These were seasoned saints who understood that age is not a limitation, it's an advantage. But you've been listening to the wrong voices. Society told you to retire your dreams. Culture told you to step aside. Even some churches told you to just pray quietly in the back row. But heaven is thundering a different message. Your time is now. The enemy has convinced you that your best days are behind you, that your purpose expired with your youth, that God's plan for your life has a sunset clause, but Psalm 92:14 declares something radically different. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, not wilted and waiting to die, not fading into the background, fresh and green. You've been carrying anointing oil in a jar you're afraid to pour out. You've been hoarding wisdom that was meant to be shared. You've been sitting on prophecies that were meant to be proclaimed. And while you've been hesitating, souls have been perishing who needed what you carry. Let me tell you what delay really costs. Every day you wait is another day someone else doesn't receive what God wanted to give them through you. Every moment you shrink back is another moment darkness advances where your light was meant to shine. Do you remember when Jesus told the parable of the talents? The servant who buried his talent wasn't cursed because he lost it. He was cursed because he hid it. Matthew 25:26-27 records the master's words. You wicked, lazy servant. You should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. God is not pleased with buried gifts. You've been burying your voice when it should be speaking life. You've been burying your prayers when they should be storming heaven. You've been burying your testimony when it should be setting captives free. Some of you right now are feeling convicted. Good. Conviction is the Holy Spirit's way of saying, it's time to move. You've been comfortable in your cage, but comfort is the enemy of calling. You've been playing it safe, but faith never plays it safe. Isaiah 43:19 says, See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? God is doing something new in your life right now, this very moment. But you have to perceive it. You have to recognize it. You have to stop looking at what was and start moving toward what is. The truth is this. You've been marked by angels for such a time as this. Not for such a time as when you were younger. Not for such a time as when you felt more confident. For such a time as this. Right now, with your gray hair that represents wisdom, with your lined face that tells stories of survival, with your weathered hands that have been through battles and come out victorious. You think your age disqualifies you. Your age is your secret weapon. You've survived everything the devil threw at you for 70, 80, 90 years. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you dangerous. But you have to stop shrinking. You have to stop apologizing for taking up space. You have to stop whispering when God gave you a voice to roar. This is your moment of decision. Right now, heaven is watching to see what you'll do with this word. Will you file it away as another nice message? Will you nod your head and then go back to playing small? Or will you stand up in your spirit and say, Lord, forgive me for hiding. I will no longer shrink to make others comfortable. Say it with me. Lord, forgive me for hiding. I will no longer shrink to make others comfortable. From this day forward, I walk as one who was marked by angels and commissioned by God. If you feel this in your bones, if your spirit is rising up within you, if something is breaking off you right now, stand up wherever you are. I don't care if you're in your living room, if you're in bed, if you're using a walker. Stand up in whatever way you can and comment, I receive my final instruction. Let the spirit realm take notice. Let every demon that tried to keep you small know that their assignment just failed. Let heaven record that on this day, you stopped shrinking and started shining. Because what I'm about to tell you next will change everything about how you see your remaining years on this earth. You know what they don't tell you about surviving? They don't tell you that what tried to bury you was never meant to kill you. It was meant to hide you. Hide you from the enemy who knew exactly what kind of weapon you would become once you emerged from that dark place. Look at your hands right now. Those hands that have held dying loved ones. Those hands that have signed divorce papers with tears still wet on the ink. Those hands that have counted pills in the middle of the night, wondering if it was worth it to wake up tomorrow. Those hands have been through hell, haven't they? But you're still here. You were abandoned but not alone. Every night you cried yourself to sleep after your spouse passed, angels were stationed at your bedside. When your children moved away and the phone stopped ringing, heaven never stopped listening. You were forgotten, but not erased. When the nursing home staff treated you like furniture, when your own family acted like you were already gone, God was carving your name deeper into the palm of his hand. Isaiah 49:16 says, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Not written, engraved, permanent, unremovable. You were delayed but never denied. Every door that slammed shut, every dream that died, every promise that seemed broken, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Heaven was moving pieces on a chessboard you couldn't see, setting you up for something so magnificent that if it had come earlier, it would have destroyed you. Think about Joseph, 17 years old, dreaming of greatness, and his own brothers threw him into a pit. They thought they were burying a dreamer. But Genesis 37:24 tells us, the pit was empty, there was no water in it. Empty, dry, ready to preserve, not destroy. That wasn't a grave, that was a hiding place. 22 years later, Joseph stood before Pharaoh as the second most powerful man in Egypt. 22 years of preparation disguised as punishment. The pit wasn't meant to bury him, it was meant to launch him. And when famine came, those same brothers who threw him in the pit had to bow down to get bread. Your pit had no water in it either. That bankruptcy that left you with nothing, that was your preservation chamber. That diagnosis that terrified your family, that was heaven's way of refining your faith until it became pure gold. That loneliness that nearly broke your mind, that was God clearing out everyone who couldn't handle the weight of what you were about to carry. Daniel, in the lion's den. Do you think for 1 second that God couldn't have kept him out of that den? Of course he could have. But Daniel needed to learn that even when surrounded by hungry predators, an angel of the Lord would shut their mouths. Daniel 6:22 says, My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. Daniel walked out of that den not just alive, but promoted. King Darius sent out a decree that everyone in the kingdom should fear Daniel's God. What tried to devour you made you famous in the spirit realm. Elijah, under the broom tree, so depressed he begged God to let him die. 1 Kings 19:4 records his words, I have had enough, Lord, take my life. But God didn't take his life. Instead, he sent an angel to feed him. Twice. And then gave him a 40-day journey on the strength of those 2 meals. The depression that nearly killed him became the fuel for his greatest ministry. That night you wanted to quit. That night you sat on the edge of your bed at 3 a.m. whispering, God, do you even see me? Do you care that I'm dying inside? Heaven didn't flinch. It marked the timestamp. Angels recorded that moment, not as your breakdown, but as your breakthrough coordinates. You're not broken, beloved. You're branded with glory. Every tear that fell from your eyes became a seed in heaven's garden. Every scream that never made it past your lips became a sound wave that shook demonic strongholds. Every night you survived, when death would have been easier, became another layer of divine armor that no weapon can penetrate. You survived the Great Depression when others lost everything. You survived wars that claimed millions. You survived decades of marriage to someone who slowly broke your heart. You survived children who disappointed you so deeply you wondered where you went wrong. You survived watching your body betray you, your mind forget names you once cherished, your independence slip away like sand through your fingers. But you survived. And survival is not just endurance, it's evidence. Evidence that hell could not hold you. Evidence that the grave could not claim you. Evidence that angels have been assigned to your case file since before you drew your first breath. The enemy tried to bury you in shame, telling you that your mistakes disqualified you from God's purposes. But Romans 8:1 declares, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. The shame was never yours to carry. He tried to bury you in regret, making you replay every wrong decision on an endless loop. But Isaiah 43:18-19 commands you, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." The regret was never yours to carry. He tried to bury you in loneliness, convincing you that your time was over, that you were forgotten, that your voice no longer mattered. But Psalm 92:14 promises, "They will still bear fruit in old age, they will stay fresh and green." The loneliness was never yours to carry. What tried to bury you failed. And now, at this very moment, heaven is reaching down into your pit with a rope made of purpose. The same God who pulled Joseph out, who shut the lions' mouths for Daniel, who fed Elijah in his darkest hour, that same God is saying to you right now, come up higher. If you've survived what should have killed you, if you're still breathing when you had every reason to quit, if you're watching this message when 100 other things tried to distract you, type right now, still breathing, still chosen, because what they tried to bury is about to bloom, and the world is about to see what happens when heaven's hidden weapons finally emerge from their underground season. You know what they tried to call you, don't you? The doctors with their charts and labels, the divorce papers with their cold legal language, the obituaries that listed everyone who left before you. They tried to name you by your wounds. They tried to define you by your losses. But listen to me, chosen one. The enemy tried to name you by what happened to you, but God is renaming you by what He planted inside you before the pain. Right now, I want you to see something that will change everything. Picture this. You're standing before a massive furnace. The flames are roaring, white hot, intense, and in those flames, there's a mirror, not melting, not cracking, reflecting. What do you see? You see 70, 80, maybe 90 years of fire. The furnace of losing your parents when you needed them most. The flames of watching your marriage crumble after 40 years. The searing heat of burying children who should have buried you. The scorching wind of friends who walked away when the diagnosis came. But here's what hell doesn't want you to understand. The furnace is not your end, it's your forge. Every flame that tried to consume you has been burning off what was never meant to stay. The fear that whispered you weren't enough. The shame that said you were damaged goods. The lies that convinced you your best years were behind you. Look deeper into that mirror, beloved. What's left standing in the fire? You're not your diagnosis. Diabetes didn't define Daniel in the lion's den. Cancer didn't cancel out Job's restoration. Your medical bracelet doesn't determine your spiritual authority. You're not your divorce. The Samaritan woman had 5 husbands, and Jesus still chose her to be the first evangelist to her entire city. Your failed marriage doesn't disqualify you from God's final assignment. You're not what they left behind. When everyone abandoned Jesus at the cross, He still had enough love left to forgive His executioners. Your empty dinner table doesn't mean your purpose is empty. You are what survived the furnace. Do you understand what that means? When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out of Nebuchadnezzar's fire, they didn't even smell like smoke. Daniel 3:27 says, "The fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed." That's you. You've walked through decades of flame and you're still here. Still breathing, still believing, still hoping when hope should have died a dozen times over. The world looks at you and sees someone who's survived. But heaven sees something different. Heaven sees someone who's been refined, purified, prepared. Every tear you've cried has been collected in God's bottle. Psalm 56:8 promises that. Every sleepless night wrestling with God has been building spiritual muscle. Every morning you chose to get up when staying down felt easier has been training for this moment. You want to know why you feel different from everyone else your age? Why you can't just settle into retirement and fade quietly? Because while they were living, you were being forged. While they were comfortable, you were being consecrated. The mirror in the fire reveals who you really are. Not the victim they tried to make you. Not the has-been they want you to believe you are. Heaven never called you victim. Heaven calls you revival bearer. Heaven calls you the torchbearer of the final hour. This is why the attacks were so intense. This is why the losses cut so deep. This is why the pain seemed disproportionate to what others your age experienced. Hell knew what you were carrying. Hell recognized the oil on your life before you did. But every demon that tried to destroy you has failed. Every lie that attempted to derail your destiny has been exposed. Every trap set to stop your assignment has backfired. You are still standing because there's something inside you that fire cannot burn, something the enemy cannot touch, something that age cannot diminish. Isaiah 61:3 speaks directly to you. To give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord. Beauty for ashes, that's your story. Oil of joy for mourning, that's your testimony. The garment of praise for heaviness, that's your wardrobe now. Heaven is whispering a name over you right now. Not the name the world gave you, not the label the doctors assigned, not the identity your circumstances tried to force on you. This is the name God called you before you were born. The name that echoes through eternity. The name that makes demons tremble and angels lean in with anticipation. Some of you, heaven is calling healer. You've been wounded so deeply that your scars have become doorways for other people's healing. Others, you're being called restorer. What was broken in your life has given you the blueprint to rebuild what's broken in others. Some of you are watchmen. You've seen so much, survived so much, that you can spot danger before it arrives and warn the next generation. And some of you carry names so sacred, so specific to your assignment, that only you and heaven know what they are. Type the name heaven's whispering back to you. It could be healer, restorer, watchman, or something only you know. Because this isn't just revelation, this is activation. The moment you type that name, you're agreeing with heaven's assessment over hell's accusation. You're choosing your divine identity over your damaged history. The mirror in the fire has shown you the truth. Now the question becomes, will you walk out of this furnace carrying the name heaven gave you, or will you go back to wearing the labels the world tried to put on you? Heaven is waiting for your answer, and time is running shorter than you think. You know what terrifies hell more than your prayers? Your decisions. Because demons can whisper lies all day long, but they cannot force your hand. They cannot make you choose. And right now, precious soul, heaven is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do with this moment. The angels that marked you before your first heartbeat, they're still here, still standing at the edge of your timeline, watching. They've been recording every tear you've cried in the darkness, every time you wanted to quit but didn't, every moment you chose faith over fear, hope over despair. They've been keeping score, beloved, and heaven's ledger shows you're winning. But here's what'll shake you to your core. All of creation is groaning for your response, not for your talent you think you're too old for talent, not for your strength you know your body is failing, for your yes. One simple word that will activate angelic armies. One decision that will unlock doors that have been sealed for decades. Romans 8:19 says it plain. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. That's you, sitting there thinking your time is over. Creation itself is waiting for you to step into who you were always meant to be. You've been asking God, what's my purpose at 75, at 82, at 89? Wrong question, dear one. The right question is, God, what are you waiting for me to agree to? Because here's the shocking truth nobody tells you. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to agree. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to agree. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to agree. You don't need to understand the plan. You just need to agree. This isn't about your resume, beloved. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. 80. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Sarah was 90 when she held her miracle baby. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus in the temple. Your birth certificate doesn't disqualify you, it credentials you. But I need you to understand something that'll pierce your heart. Every day you hesitate is another day someone else stays bound. Your obedience isn't just about you. There's a grandchild who needs to see faith in action. There's a neighbor who's losing hope. There's someone in your church, your building, your family, who's watching to see if God still moves through seasoned saints. Your agreement activates their breakthrough. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." This is your season. Not tomorrow when you feel better. Not next week when things calm down. Right now. Today. This hour. This moment. The enemy has been whispering the same lie for decades. You're too old. You missed your chance. Your time is over. But I prophesy to you right now, the devil is a liar. Your best days aren't behind you. They're being released from heaven's vault as I speak. God didn't keep you alive through heart attacks, strokes, surgeries, losses, and loneliness just so you could watch television and wait to die. He preserved you for such a time as this. Esther wasn't kept safe in the palace for her comfort. She was positioned for her calling. And your calling is crying out from the future, demanding your attention. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to agree. I can feel the resistance rising in some of you, but I've made too many mistakes. David was an adulterer and murderer. God called him a man after his own heart. But I don't have education. Peter was a fisherman. Jesus made him the rock of the church, but I'm too set in my ways. Saul was a terrorist. God transformed him into Paul, the greatest missionary who ever lived. Your past doesn't disqualify you, it qualifies you. Every scar is a credential. Every failure is a testimony. Every broken place is where God's light shines brightest. Right now, heaven's war room is strategizing around your yes. Angels are positioned. Resources are allocated. Divine appointments are being arranged. The only missing piece is your agreement. What if I told you that heaven has already declared the next 7 days as a divine countdown? 7 days where every prayer you pray carries double weight. Every step you take creates supernatural momentum. Every act of obedience opens doors that have been rusted shut for years, but it's waiting on you to begin it. Deuteronomy 30:19 thunders across time. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Heaven and earth are witnessing this moment. Your choice right now is being recorded in eternity. This isn't a maybe moment, beloved. This is a covenant moment. A moment where you stop being a spectator and become a participant in God's end-time plan. Write today's date, right now, in the comments, out loud. Speak it like a vow. Say, I'm stepping in. Let heaven hear your voice. Let the angels rejoice. Let every demon that tried to silence you know that their time is up. Because what happens next will determine not just your next chapter, but your entire legacy. The countdown has begun, precious soul, and heaven is watching what you do next. You've wondered why you've been under fire your entire life, haven't you? Why every step forward felt like walking through a minefield. Why relationships crumbled just when you needed them most. Why doors slammed shut right when breakthrough seemed certain. Why your health failed at the worst possible moments. Why financial disasters struck like clockwork. But hear this, chosen one. Hell saw your blueprint before you did. That's why it came early. That's why it hit hard. That's why the attacks were surgical, precise, relentless. Before you even learned to speak, the spirit realm was already whispering, that one's dangerous. While you were taking your first steps, demons were plotting your downfall. While you were learning to pray, hell was studying your potential. You think those childhood traumas were random? You think that abuse was just bad luck? You think those accidents, those illnesses, those betrayals just happened to find you? The enemy saw what heaven placed in you before your own parents recognized it. He saw the fire in your spirit before you even knew you had one. He saw the authority you'd carry, the chains you'd break, the generations you'd deliver. That's why he tried to kill your confidence in kindergarten. That's why he sent rejection through the people who should have protected you. That's why he whispered lies about your worth before you were old enough to know they were lies. Every attack on your mind was strategic. Every blow to your heart was calculated. Every attempt to make you quit was because hell knew something about your future that you're only now beginning to understand. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But notice it doesn't say no weapon will be formed. They will be formed. They will be aimed at you, but they will not prosper. You've been wondering why you survived what killed others, why you're still standing when people half your age have given up, why your spirit still burns when your body should be tired. It's because you carry something hell cannot duplicate, cannot corrupt, cannot destroy. You are not a victim of spiritual warfare. You are a target of spiritual warfare. And there's a massive difference. Victims are random casualties. Targets are strategic threats. You've been targeted your entire life because you are a threat to darkness. Think about this. Why would the enemy waste ammunition on someone who doesn't matter? Why would hell invest decades trying to destroy someone who has no kingdom value? Why would demons work overtime to silence a voice that carries no weight? They wouldn't. The intensity of your battles has been the proof of your importance. The relentlessness of the attacks has been confirmation of your calling. The precision of the warfare has been evidence of your assignment. You thought the war was about your failure. It was about your future. Every time you wanted to quit but couldn't, that was heaven holding you. Every time you should have broken but bent instead, that was angels reinforcing your spine. Every time you lost everything but kept your faith, that was proof you carry something eternal. The enemy has spent 70, 80, 90 years trying to convince you that you're weak, that you're finished, that your best days are behind you. But what if he's been lying? What if every gray hair is a badge of honor? What if every wrinkle tells the story of a battle won? What if every ache in your bones is evidence that you've been in the fight and you're still here? Hell wanted you to see your age as disqualification. Heaven sees it as qualification. The enemy wanted you to view your scars as shame. God sees them as credentials. Satan hoped your losses would make you bitter, but they made you better. You are not late to your calling. You are ready for your calling. You are not weak from the battles. You are strengthened by them. You are not disqualified by your past. You are equipped by it. Jeremiah 1-5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." God didn't set you apart for an easy life. He set you apart for an effective life. The warfare you've endured wasn't punishment for sin. It was preparation for assignment. Every demon that tormented you was terrified of who you'd become. Every lie that haunted you was trying to prevent a truth from emerging. Every attack on your identity was hell's desperate attempt to keep you from discovering your authority. But you survived it all. You are still here. And hell is terrified you're finally waking up, because now you know the truth. Now you understand why the battle was so fierce. Now you realize that every year you've lived, every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered has been forming something unstoppable inside you. The enemy saw your end from your beginning. He saw the revival you'd spark, the chains you'd break, the kingdom you'd advance. That's why he fought so hard to stop you. But he failed. You are not a casualty of war. You are a survivor of war. And survivors don't just tell stories, they change stories. The very fact that you're hearing these words right now, that your heart is pounding with recognition, that something deep in your spirit is shouting, "Yes," that's proof the enemy's plan backfired. You are rising. And the question that will determine everything that happens next is this. Now that you know why hell fought you so hard, what are you going to do with the authority you've been carrying all along? The room grows quiet now. Can you feel it? That sacred hush when heaven leans in close. This is not about spotlight. It's about strategy. God is not asking for performance. He's releasing orders. You've waited your whole life for this moment, haven't you? 70, 80, maybe 90 years of wondering what your real purpose was, while you raised children, worked jobs, paid mortgages, buried loved ones. Heaven was preparing you for this final assignment. Listen carefully, beloved. The scroll with your name on it is unrolling right now. But first, let me ask you something that might shake you. What if every disappointment in your life was God protecting you from settling too early? What if every closed door was heaven saying, "Not yet, I'm saving you for something bigger"? Think about Moses, 80 years old when God called him at the burning bush. 80. Most people today think they're done at 65. But God looked at an 80-year-old stuttering shepherd and said, "Now you're ready to lead a nation." Exodus 3:10. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt. Moses could have said, "God, I'm too old. My voice shakes, my knees creak." But instead he said yes. And the greatest miracle in human history followed. Your age is not your limitation. It's your qualification. The instructions coming to you now aren't general suggestions. They're surgical strikes against the kingdom of darkness. God has been watching. He's seen how you handle rejection, how you worship through pain, how you forgive when it costs you everything. And now he's saying, I can trust this one with the final mission. The scroll is opening. Can you hear heaven's whisper? Call your estranged son, forgive him. Your pride wants to resist. You want him to call first, to apologize first. But God is saying the healing of your family line depends on your obedience. One phone call could break a generational curse. One conversation could restore what the enemy stole. Don't wait for him to humble himself. You humble yourself. That's what makes you chosen. Start that prayer group with the 3 women at your church. You think you're too old to lead anything new, but those 3 women have been waiting for someone with your spiritual authority to step up. Your prayers carry weight now because they've been tested by fire. When you intercede, heaven listens differently. When you gather in agreement, Matthew 18:20 activates. Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. Write your story. It's not too late. That book you thought you'd never write? Those memories you thought no one would care about? God is saying, write it down. Your testimony is someone's lifeline. Your survival story is proof that God still works miracles. Stop thinking small. Start thinking eternal. But here's what breaks my heart about some of you listening right now. You're going to hear these instructions and let fear talk you out of obedience. You're going to say, maybe tomorrow, maybe when I feel stronger, maybe when I have more courage. Tomorrow is not promised, precious soul. James 4:14 cuts deep. You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. How many tomorrows do you think you have left? How many more chances will God give you to say yes to his final instructions? The enemy is whispering in your ear right now, you're too old, you're too tired, it won't matter anyway. But that's exactly why God chose you. Because when an 80-year-old grandmother leads 3 souls to Christ, nobody can say it was her charisma. When a 90-year-old man reconciles his family, nobody can credit his strength. It's obviously God. Your weakness is his strength amplified. I need you to understand something that's going to rock your world. You are not in the sunset of your life. You are in the sunrise of your purpose. Every gray hair is a crown of wisdom. Every wrinkle is a roadmap of survival. Every scar is proof that you can't be stopped. The younger generation needs what you carry. They need your tested faith. They need your fire-tried love. They need to see that God doesn't throw people away when they get old. He promotes them. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized baby Jesus in the temple. Luke 2:37 says she never left the temple but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. At 84, she became the first person to preach about Jesus to all who were looking for redemption in Jerusalem. 84 years old and just getting started. Your scroll has been sealed until now because God needed you mature enough, broken enough, desperate enough to handle what He's asking. Young people pray for comfort. Old saints pray for completion. You don't want easy anymore. You want eternal. So here it is, your final instruction. Stop asking God to make you comfortable and start asking Him to make you useful. Stop praying for easy days and start praying for effective days. Stop waiting for perfect conditions and start moving in simple obedience. The scroll is open. The instructions are clear. Heaven is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do with what you just received. Comment, I will obey the scroll. And then go. Do, move, pick up that phone, schedule that meeting, buy that journal. Take the first step toward the thing God just whispered to your heart. Heaven is watching what you do with what you just received. Don't make God wait another day for your yes, because what you do next will echo through eternity. Chosen one, look at your hands right now. Look at those weathered fingers that have signed divorce papers, held dying loved ones, counted pennies during lean years. Those aren't just hands, they're tools that heaven has been sharpening for 80 years. You think you've been wandering in circles? You think God forgot about you while you watched your friends get promoted, get healed, get blessed? You've been asking, Lord, when is it my turn? But what if I told you that you were never in the waiting room, you were in the preparation chamber? Your wilderness has become your coronation ground. Every sleepless night you thought was punishment was actually a private audience with the King. Every tear you shed in silence watered seeds of authority you didn't even know were planted. Every time you got back up when life knocked you down, heaven was taking notes, writing your resume for a position you never applied for. Listen to me, dear soul. You were not delayed. You were developed. You were not denied. You were designed. You were not overlooked. You were anointed under wraps. The Bible says in Esther 4:14, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Esther thought she was just surviving. She had no idea she was being positioned. Just like you, you've been living in what I call hidden preparation. While others were building their empires in the spotlight, God was building your character in the shadows. While they were collecting applause, you were collecting wisdom. While they were networking with people, you were wrestling with God. You were hidden not to be forgotten, but to be revealed in power. David spent years in caves before he claimed his throne. Moses wandered the desert for 40 years before he led a nation. Jesus himself was hidden for 30 years before he stepped into ministry. The pattern is clear. God's greatest moves require the longest preparation. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you have believed the enemy's lie that you missed your season, that you're too old now, that your time has passed. The devil wants you to believe that because your body is slowing down, your purpose is shutting down. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Your knees may creak when you stand, but your spirit is just getting started. Your memory may fade about where you put your keys, but you remember every promise God ever whispered to you. Your physical strength may be diminishing, but your spiritual authority is at its peak. Why do you think you're still here when others your age are gone? Why do you think you survived that heart attack, that cancer, that accident? Why do you think you outlasted the spouse who was supposed to protect you, the children who were supposed to care for you, the friends who were supposed to journey with you? Because heaven has been saving you for something final, something glorious, something that requires exactly what you've become: a seasoned warrior who's lost everything and still believes, a tested vessel who's been through fire and came out pure, a proven fighter who knows how to stand when everything falls apart. Isaiah 46:4 declares, even to your old age and gray hairs I am he who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. God doesn't just tolerate your aging, He treasures it. Your gray hair is a crown of glory, earned through righteous living. The world sees retirement when they look at you. Heaven sees recruitment, the world sees decline. Heaven sees design, the world sees your sunset. Heaven sees your sunrise. This is your unveiling day. The curtain is being pulled back. The veil is being torn. What looked like delay was actually divine timing. What felt like denial was actually divine design. What seemed like being overlooked was actually being overlooked, watched over by angels who've been guarding your assignment. This is your unveiling day, and heaven just ripped the veil off your destiny. You're not stepping down, you're stepping up. You're not winding down, you're being wound up for your greatest impact. The young may have energy, but you have authority. They may have time, but you have timing. They may have dreams, but you have proven faith. Your children think you should slow down. Your doctor says you should take it easy. Society whispers you should step aside. But heaven is thundering. Now is your time. The prayers you prayed in desperation decades ago are about to be answered in demonstration. The promises that seemed dead are about to resurrect. The dreams that were buried are about to burst through the soil of your circumstances. You've endured the process. You've survived the preparation. You've outlasted the opposition. Now comes the presentation, heaven's grand unveiling of what they've been crafting in you all these years. This isn't about it's about assignment. This isn't about retirement, it's about recruitment. This isn't about your final chapter, it's about your finest hour. The angels have been marking you, but today they're also announcing you. Your time of hiding is over. Your season of silence has ended. Your moment of manifestation has arrived. If this word has confirmed what your soul always suspected, if something deep inside you is saying, yes, this is me, this is my time, then write, I've been unveiled. Share this message. Don't let the scroll close before others get to read theirs. Because someone else is sitting in their chair, wondering if God has forgotten them too. Your unveiling isn't just for you, it's for everyone who needs to see that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't feel like it. Beloved chosen one, as we come to the close of this sacred moment together, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that heaven has spoken over your life today. First, your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. Every gray hair, every wrinkle, every scar you carry is evidence that you've survived what was meant to destroy you. You are not too old to be used by God. You are perfectly aged for your assignment. Second, your pain was never pointless, it was preparation. Those sleepless nights, those silent tears, those moments when you felt forgotten, none of it was wasted. God was forging you in the fire, creating a vessel strong enough to carry glory in the final season of your life. Third, your time is not over, it's just beginning. What looks like your sunset to the world is actually your sunrise in the spirit. The angels haven't marked you for retirement. They've marked you for revival. But here's what I want you to understand, more than anything else. You are not walking this path alone. Even when your house feels empty, even when the phone doesn't ring, even when it seems like the world has moved on without you, God is still working. He's still moving. He's still orchestrating divine appointments and supernatural encounters in your life. And you have a community right here. Look at these comments. Look at these hearts beating with the same calling, the same fire, the same refusal to quit. You are surrounded by thousands of chosen ones who understand exactly what you're feeling because they've felt it too. So let me ask you this. What would you do if you really knew that your next chapter would be your greatest chapter? What would you attempt if you believed that heaven was backing your every step? Let me pray with you now, placing my hand on your shoulder, as if we were sitting together in your living room. Father God, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this message. These are your warriors, Lord Battle, tested, fire-proven, and still standing. Touch their hearts right now with your peace. Let them feel your presence in their quiet moments. Remove every lie that says they're too old, too tired, too late. Replace those whispers with your truth, that their latter days will be greater than their former days. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide for their every need. Heal their bodies where they hurt. Restore their hope where it's been damaged. Surround them with favor like a shield. Let their children call them blessed. Let their grandchildren see your glory through their testimony. Use their prayers to shake heaven and their presence to shift atmospheres. Give them dreams and visions, Lord. Speak to them in ways they cannot doubt. Confirm their calling through signs and wonders. And when doubt tries to creep in, remind them of this moment when heaven interrupted their day to tell them they are chosen, they are marked, they are not forgotten. In Jesus' mighty name, I declare over every person hearing this prayer, your best days are not behind you, they are ahead of you. Your greatest impact is not in your past, it's in your future. Your most powerful prayers are not the ones you've already prayed, they're the ones you're about to pray. Amen and amen. Now, dear one, don't let this moment end with just feeling inspired. Let it launch you into action. Share your heart with us in the comments below. Tell us what God spoke to you today. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community will surround you with intercession. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's another senior who feels forgotten. Maybe it's an adult child who needs to see their parent through heaven's eyes. Maybe it's a friend who's struggling to believe their best days aren't over. When you share this, you're not just passing along a video, you're extending a lifeline to someone who might be sitting in their chair right now, wondering if God remembers their name. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. We're building more than a subscriber list. We're building a family of chosen ones who refuse to give up on God's promises. Your subscription helps us reach more hearts that need this truth. Thank you for giving me your time today. Thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you for believing that God still has plans for your life. And thank you for being living proof that the chosen ones of God are not defeated by age, they are defined by assignment. Remember, precious soul, you haven't come this far to only come this far. Your story isn't ending, it's just getting to the good part. Until we meet again, keep your eyes on heaven and your feet ready to move. The angels are still watching, the instructions are still coming, and you are still chosen. God bless you richly.